Group 3 is on board.
Okay. Sorry for rushing, but we have no possibility to stay longer. Okay. Yeah.
We are Group 3, and our area of expertise is on the prevention programs. And we thought that in order to talk about prevention programs, it is important to understand the entire aspect and realm of human trafficking. And in terms of that, we need...
Oh, great.
No, she said. We don't know for sure. No, you're not.
I'll just do it again. I have my slides. I'll just make my slides right off. I can go.
It's okay. You don't have to. It's all right. Just make your presentation. Don't worry about this. Okay, Group 3.
So yes, we are again on prevention programs, and we wanted to discuss the obstacles that prevention programs have to face in order to help stop and put an end to human trafficking. So
Prevention programs.
excuse me?
Yeah.
Oh yes, prevention programs. So in order to be able to prevent it, you have to know what to look for. So NGOs have a profile that they use to identify the most successful areas and reach out to them before they are trafficked. So they look for low income and low socioeconomic standings. They also try to go to orphanages to reach out because usually at the age of 16 or 17 they're turned out from orphanages and don't have any money or really any education, so they have to turn to whatever assistance they can get. They also go to rural areas that are have high poverty rates and high unemployment rates, and look for those with bad home lives. They traffickers are a big factor, obviously, of trafficking, and they are able to get around the laws because they're familiar with them. And since there's not a lot of knowledge about it, it's very easy for them to get around it. For example, there is a visa called an H-2A visa that a lot of traffickers use for agricultural victims, and it was a big issue in terms of a bust that they had with the Global Horizons. It was the largest human trafficking bust, and that was the main passport or visa that they used to get people.
Call us once again. We lose your voice.
Can you hear us?
Can we lose voice? We cannot hear the voice properly, so maybe it's a microphone or something's happening.
Okay. Can you hear us? Can you hear us now? Can you hear us?
Yeah, it's fine now.
It's fine now. Okay, why don't you just come closer and stand closer so they can. There we go.
Maybe you can switch. Okay, it's fine.
Can you hear us now?
Yeah, just talk.
No, it's fine. Okay, we are listening to you.
Okay, and then also, traffickers are well aware of an area known as Transnistria, which is in Moldova, but they don't consider themselves part of Moldova, so they have their own regime, and it's corrupt there, and it's easy to pay officials off to get travel documents and such, and the traffickers are well aware of that. And then with globalization, the market has increased dramatically, and it's not just for agriculture work and sex industry. They also use them for sweatshops, organ removals, domestic servitude, begging. A lot of young children are sold into begging. They are transferred over to Poland to make a certain amount a day. And then also there has been a rise, in the use of children in armed conflicts. They actually had a study where the Taliban had bought a few children for suicide bombings. So it is important that we try to intervene in those markets.
Okay, my slides were left out, so just ignore your PowerPoint for a second, but I thought it was important to discuss.
Just a minute, please. Judith?
Yes.
Can you please switch off the video? We cannot hear you properly. Can you switch off the video?
Yes.
And try to listen. Okay? Go on.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's better now.
Okay, my slides were left out, so just ignore your PowerPoint for a minute. But I just wanted to discuss a little bit behind the scenes of the life of a trafficker, because I think that's important when trying to, solve these kinds of situations. Traffickers are often involved in large crime rings, and these organized.
We cannot hear you. We cannot hear you.
All right. Can you hear me now?
It's better now. Yeah. So please try to keep the microphone not so close to your mouth.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Traffickers are often involved in large crime rings, and these organized crime rings exploit 700,000 to 4 million new victims of human trafficking each year. They are usually kept well hidden, and they are often well connected to government and police officials. The trafficker typically lures their victims across borders where they are more vulnerable to abuse.
Listening and hearing, I think it will be, a bit better, because people have different voices.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Continue.
It is easier for them this way because the victims are in a foreign place and often are not familiar with the language or their surroundings. They trick women into believing they are traveling to obtain jobs or a better life, and once the women arrive at their destination, they realize they have been sold. Traffickers often beat or rape the women into submission, and they often use drugs to keep the women disoriented and unaware. They often call this phase grooming or seasoning. The United States CIA estimates that a trafficker can make about $250,000 per woman. Traffickers often gain emotional and psychological control over their victims by pretending to really care about them at first, and this often keeps the victims submissive. There have been a lot of cases where victims become traffickers, and victims usually
We cannot hear you. We cannot hear you.
What about now?
Yeah, now it's better.
Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think maybe our problem is just some projection here. Also, I'm a little concerned because it's time for us to move to our
I
next.
think it's a problem with the microphone because you keep it or too close to the mouth or too.
Can you hear now?
Yeah, it's very good. When you speak, Judith, we hear you properly. But when the colleagues are presenting, we are losing their voice.
All right. Well, I think let's try it again with some projection. Pretend
sorry.
like you're talking to them back there.
Okay.
Back the room.
Can you hear me good?
Yeah, please.
Okay. I'm talking about victims becoming traffickers now. Victims begin to identify with their traffickers after they've been trafficked for so long. They tend to desensitize. Victims sometimes are tricked into believing that if they can find a replacement for them, then their trafficker will free them, but it's very rare that happens. When victims are forced to help with the trafficking process, sometimes they feel so guilty or they fear that they will get into trouble for being involved, so they give up and sink deeper into the whole situation. A lot of times, men traffickers will use women victims as recruiters to bring in other new women, and these recruiter women become one of the traffickers, either to protect themselves or for the approval of the man.
This is his story.
In 2003, 49.1% of Moldovan victims were recruited by women, and this number increased in 2004 to 61.8%. Some recruiters who are former victims are said to have little to no sympathy for the new victims, considering the being trafficked part as just part of the whole process. And the last part is there was levels of trafficking groups which I was completely unaware of in the whole process. And I found that in southeastern European countries, human trafficking is almost always done through larger crime organizations, in contrast to places like Southeast Asia where the trafficker usually acts individually. The trafficking networks in southeastern Europe are well organized and act in more than several territories and markets. They have the ability to use one or more routes and even have the ability to respond to a shifting market demand. The high-level groups tend to use well-developed methods of control and planning, using the mid and lower-level crime groups to do their busy work. The high-level groups set the prices and usually finance the transfer of the victim, but they avoid becoming directly involved in the transportation part. Mid-level groups operate in strategic geographical areas, usually have borders, and are usually commissioned by high-level groups to take care of the operational matters such as transportation, production of false documents, and payment of the border officials. Low-level groups are basically the ignorant, unskilled criminals whose job it is to receive.
Hello?
Hi, can you hear us?
We hear you just excellent. We do not hear the presentation at all. It's read very fast and without any intonation, so it's a little bit difficult for us to follow. But we follow the slides. We need to move. Can we get to the conclusions? We need to move to the next group, please.
Yes, we really do. Did Melissa want to say something on your end before we move to the next group?
Yeah, I will say a little bit about Moldova, if you don't mind. A couple of words, yeah?
Yes, please.
Next, just a little bit about Moldova, what preventions in Moldova means. Yeah, so we have also several directions. Elizaveta Buzatu worked on, so she tried to schematically show you what prevention in Moldova means, and it's the same direction as in US. Yeah, we do not have new or unknown direction in this sense. Yeah, so assessment, awareness, social, economic issues, assistance, and law enforcement. Next slide. And also we have organizations, so governmental organization, NGO, and international organization are all working together on this issue, on the issue of prevention. So we have a couple of organizations here written down. Next slide, please. And here is a case study also about La Strada, which was very significant for us to understand what's happening. So, and down we have a couple of instruments that are really good work on this. Hotline, which a victim can call from every country and reach this 8888 in the end, and call the assistant from La Strada, who is asking proper questions and trying to help the victim. Next one. So, of course, we have similarities in the ways, mechanisms, and instruments are applied in Moldova and US. Thank you.